Welcome to an episode of Behind the Scenes, a weekly program unveiling the biggest political developments in Somali politics. I'm Sultan Mohammed, your host and producer here on HORUFADHI Media. On this week's program, the Bihi regime launches a dawn attack on the city of Las Anod as fighting enters its 16th day. Splinters begin to form in Somaliland, clan leadership as political opposition to the Bihi regime strengthens in the region. What are the latest developments? This is a topic on the program today. We hope you find this program very informative. Please like, share, and for similar content, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media. Also, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media Group's second channel, known as HORUFADHI TV, where you are currently watching this program and where you can find other exclusive programs, such as the African Weekly Roundup, Salah, among others. And last but not least, do follow myself, Sultan Mohammed, Suleiman Hashi, Yassine Abdi, and the wider HORUFADHI Media team on our social media platforms that should appear on the screen any moment. Let's get straight into it. Fighting entered its 16th day in the northern Somali city of Las Anod between locals opposed to the secessionist ideology and the pro-secessionist Somaliland authorities in Hargeisa. As the sun rose above the city on Tuesday morning, the very few locals that are left in the city were awoken to the sounds of heavy gunfire and artillery barrage as separatist forces launched another attack on the city, this time from 3 different fronts in an attempt to encircle, crush and subjugate the people of Las Anod and Sol into the vision of a separatist Somaliland regime that stretches the old British Somaliland Protectorate, a colony established by the British Empire against the will of the local people, a concept in itself founded in injustice and oppression. Reports indicate that separatist forces launched the attack from the east and southern flanks of the city and its defenses. Separatists began shelling the town around 5:30 a.m. Tuesday morning in an attempt to soften defenses before attacking the SSC Khatama positions in the east and southeast of the city with technical pickups and infantry. Latest updates showed the attack was repelled by SSC Khatama forces and Somaliland units were forced to retreat to their positions. Speaking to the media in Las Anod, spokesman for the 33-member committee that governs the SSC region, Abdulrazak Falaluk, explained that the battle began at around 5:30 a.m. and continued for more than 3 hours. He went on further to outline that the separatist forces attempted to enter the city from 3 corners before being pushed back to their bases far from the city, with some being chased even further away. Similarly, speaking to the press, Grad Abdul Karim, one of the senior traditional elders of the SSC Khatama region, exposed that the homes of a number of traditional elders in the city continue to be bombarded by separatists despite calls for peace and dialogue by Musa Bihi. He also criticized the so-called peace delegation set by traditional elders of the Somaliland region, highlighting that the solution to the conflict isn't negotiations with the people of Las Anod, as they are the victims of an attack, but rather sending a delegation to Hargeisa and the presidential palace there as the war machine is being navigated from that room. On the other hand, traditional elders from Hargeisa that are attempting to mediate talks between the separatist Somaliland regime led by Bihi and the SSC Khatama authority in Las Anod released a press statement on Tuesday. The spokesman explained that traditional elders were voluntarily attempting to mediate the peace and were not appointed by the Bihi regime. They called for an immediate ceasefire with no preconditions, highlighting the un-Islamic and anti-Somali nature of this needless conflict. Indeed, it is always positive to see traditional elders that are outside the realm of political discourse, attempting to resolve political impasses in Somalia. And this has been the solution to political and military issues in the country since the collapse of the central government during the civil war in 1991. However, the issue here, and what is clear, is that the traditional elders in Hargeisa continue to come short of condemning the constant and blatant attacks by the clearly more powerful Somaliland units against civilians and the people of Las Anod. This isn't even a battle. This is a military force, military units, bombing and attacking civilian populations, which means there is clearly a wrong and a right in the situation. The traditional elders from Hargeisa, highlighted the continued destruction of private property and civilian deaths. However, the main question for them is the SSC and Khatama Defense Forces bombing cities and killing civilians, or is it Somaliland forces stationed on the outskirts of the city of Las Anod that continue to unjustly and indiscriminately bombard the city from afar? That is a serious question that these elders need to answer before they can even sit down with the 33-member committee of the SSC Khatama authority. Now, what traditional elders should be doing is sending a delegation to the presidential office in Hargeisa to talk to Bihi into stopping the continued bombardment. This is not the first time President Bihi has stated he wants peace and will not attack the city, only to launch an assault the following morning. And we remember what happened last week, and the latest events unfolding today on a Tuesday this morning show just that. Ultimately, what Bihi does not realize is that he's not only dividing, but also destroying the very version of Somaliland, separatist Somaliland, that he claims to stand for. Last week, traditional elders from the Garhajis clan, a major subclan of the Isaq clan, the majority clan in Somaliland, decided to opt out of any war in Las Anod because, one, they realized that this was an unjust war and civilians are being indiscriminately killed. Number two, Somaliland forces that were members of the Garhajis clan were reported to be treated differently from the ruling subclan. In other words, there was clan discrimination amongst the Somaliland elite. And number three, the unilateral decision by Bihi broke the regional clan power structure sharing system that underpinned the governance of Somaliland that was created in the early 90s. Now finally, the committee of the clan of Garhajis outlined that any war crimes or atrocities in the city of Las Anod is in the hands of Bihi and his administration. Similarly, the Ayub subclan's Ogas, or in English, Sultan or leader, king, released a statement yesterday equally condemning the violence in Las Anod and also outlining that the Bihi regime is engaging in activities that are criminal. Ultimately, what is evident is that there is a heavy splinter within traditional and clan systems that maintain peace in northern Somalia, known as Somaliland. Aside from the split in clans and traditional elders, there's also been a split within the political establishment of Somaliland, even though this split has been going on prior to the issue of Las Anod. We know last year, the elections that were supposed to be held in Somaliland in November were completely postponed by the regime, which led to protests. Now, MPs such as Muhammad Abib of the Somaliland Regional Parliament have highlighted that the Bihi regime failed to even seek parliamentary approval prior to the attack launched in Las Anod, which literally goes against the foundations of any democratic society or government. Other MPs have openly and vocally condemned the violence in Las Anod as clear war crimes and violation of any international or local laws. The opposition parties, including Wadani and U'id, have condemned the war as unjust and criminal. Many have highlighted the oppressive measures taken by the Bihi regime last year when the people of the region came out in the thousands to support the elections to be held on the scheduled month of November, only to face live ammunition from the police, and dozens were killed and many opposition politicians were wounded or detained unjustly. Currently, the Bihi regime has exceeded its constitutional mandate as stipulated by regional laws of Somaliland, yet he continues to overstay using force and violence. Therefore, it's not a surprise to many that the Bihi regime is again using brutal force to subjugate the locals of Las Anod and Sor. The reality is that this conflict has shifted away from the political to a clan level. The splinters amongst the Isaq clan of Somaliland, as well as the claims being pushed by the local Lubahante clan of the Sol region of attempts by the Bihi regime to displace their local residents in an attempt to reshuffle the demographics of the region, demonstrates that the crux of the conflict might be political, but it has most definitely shifted further forward towards clan tensions. Regardless, the underpinning issue is one of political nature. The concept that Somaliland's borders swallow the Sol region in its entirety, while also seeking secessionism from the rest of the Somali nation, a concept rejected by the traditional leadership of the Sol region. Currently, it seems as though the Bihi regime is hell-bent on destroying the city, its locals and traditional elders before subjugating its population and then sending traditional elders to deceive the international community of a peace attempt while coercing the outcomes of any talks. Now, the SSC Khatama leadership want all Somaliland forces to leave the region and return to their bases before any talks can begin, but this seems to be rejected by the Bihi regime despite public pledges to cease fire and initiate talks. Now, authorities in Hargeisa continue to insist that the war in Las Anod is an attempt to pacify what Somaliland claims to be an international terrorist cell that has overrun the city, which has been rejected by many analysts and intellects that are well versed in the politics of the region, as well as traditional elders and the 33-member clan committee of the SSC Khatama region. Ultimately, it does not seem as though this war will end anytime soon. However, what has equally shocked many Somalis across the globe is the lack of action from the federal government, aside from the Somali Disaster Management Agency, which has been praised for providing some medical support to wounded locals, even though this isn't actually enough to support the people that are being injured, because many of them are actually being taken to Getaway and being supported by locals in those towns and regions. Now, there has been no official government policy from the federal government outlined or what the government even plans to do to mediate this conflict. Instead, we've heard speeches from the president and prime minister calling for an immediate ceasefire without conditions, and they haven't actually addressed the particular issues that are being raised by both sides, particularly the SSC Khatama side, which have requested for the federal government to begin establishing a federal member state in that region. Now, there has been no official government policy in terms of the statement released by the 33-member committee, including how they're going to establish this FSG or federal government authority in the region, and how they're going to establish a federal member state, which has also not been addressed by Mogadishu. Now, again, if President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud really believes in the unity of this country, if he really believes in the stability of this country, and wants to see Somali Heshis or Somalian agreement, as he puts it, he must take action now. He hasn't been in office for a year, and the concept of Somalian agreement or Somali Heshis is definitely in the bin. We know what happened in Southwest States. We have to praise the president and his team and the government for mediating talks in Southwest State, and that's a positive, and I think that's the right way to go about rectifying issues in Somalia. But if the president is doing that in Southwest State, it's quite concerning that he's quite silent on the Seoul, Senag and Iron region, which needs even more mediation than Beirut needed last year and in January of this year. Speeches and statements in the masjid, on TV, on a Facebook post, on a Twitter post, do not provide actual solutions to any of the problems, and do not provide actual solutions to the local people of the city that are being subjugated to constant violence. MPs have elected Hassan Sheikh Mohamud. They've elected him to become president of our nation. And clearly and currently, he's failing to lead this nation.